All right, so we've done our Biden deep dive for today. What about the others? There's some other candidates still in the mix. Mayor Bloomberg no longer pour out some very, very expensive Veuve Clicquot, paid for courtesy of the Bloomberg campaign in honor of the Bloomberg 2020 great race that they ran. He tried so hard. He really did. You know, he's just like, ugh. Why do I have to do this and show up? I'm the only one with the record. I'm the only one with the skill set and a bajillion dollars. And yet you won't make me your mayor. Why? But he did win. He did win American Samoa. So he spent $600 million and won American Samoa. And that's pretty much it. Didn't really get to a place that he thought he would, where you had people saying that Bloomberg, based on just the amount of spending, was going to be in a position to be a top contender here and might even win on the Bloomberg strategy. Believe it or not, was that this is what and he had the highest, by the way, his consultants, golf clap. You guys ripped off a super wealthy old man by pretending that he had a real shot and putting out all these numbers and all this propaganda. And it was, it seemed like maybe it could work. You got that much money. I mean, if you're really going to be giving people, Wagyu beef sliders for free at events all over the country and all kinds of expensive swag with Bloomberg 2020 on it, maybe you can pull something. But it turns out, no, you can't. The Bloomberg strategy, and I mean the official campaign strategy, this is what they thought, was that they would be able to get Steyer would win in South Carolina, preventing Biden from having any momentum going into Super Tuesday, and then Bloomberg would win Super Tuesday, come out in the lead with the delegates, and Biden would concede and consolidate behind Bloomberg. That's what I've been reading people say, the sources of the campaign. That was the strategy. Wrong. You got that many consultants, that many people doing polls and testing and everything with Bloomberg was supposed to be. It was the best. He had truly the best campaign money could buy in the time window that he was operating under, which was very short, but still. And there were national polls. I told you about them. There were national polls where he was at, 20%. He was the number 2 contender in some of them behind Bernie, or the number 3 contender out of nowhere. So it seemed, right, all of it was there. But then wait a second, hold on. That's not how the votes shook out at all. Now, there were the changes with Klobuchar and Buttigieg stepping out, fine. But when we look at what's really gone on here, it's shown us a couple of things. One, Mayor Bloomberg does not have the national level appeal that, despite being super rich and having been mayor of New York for like 100 years, he's just not going to be the next president of the Union. He's not even going to be the Democrat nominee. Why'd he waste so many hours on private jets flying around? He hates it. He's not going to be the nominee. He's not popular at the national level. Being mayor of New York is not a great springboard into winning votes in Florida and Ohio and Michigan. We didn't even test that theory out yet, but and ultimately the biggest there are 2 major takeaways from the Bloomberg debacle, which you have to call it a debacle at this point. I spent $600 million in a few months for what? Well, I mean, there are a lot of people that he is kind of a one-man political stimulus campaign. So there are consultants that line their pockets. There are people that have done very, very well as a result of Bloomberg's vanity campaign. I'm going to save the country from big soda and guns that go bang, bang and very loud. I don't like them. So he didn't win. Okay. But he spent so much money, we should have one. There are 2 lessons related to the money he spent here. One, by the way, producer Mark, I feel like we're not going to have a Bloomberg-funded Maserati in the Freedom Hunt anytime soon. I'm a little disappointed about this. I guess that also means, though, we're not going to get any more people upset at us about Bloomberg ads in the podcast.
Thank goodness he dropped out, because if I hear one more message about the Bloomberg ads, I was going to explode.
I just I told people there's nothing we could do about it, but
they don't want us to make money, apparently.
That cash cow. Yeah, hey. Go check out some of our sponsors here in the Freedom Hut, all right?
You know, when
this
we
this is capitalism. You want to help us defeat Marxism? Help the Freedom Hut defeat Marxism by going to our sponsors.
If we start doing the show in the dark, don't complain.
Yeah, I was going to say, we can't keep the lights on. You guys will know why. So, type in that promo code BUCK wherever you can. And this is what I got on this one for you. We've been hearing for years that Republicans buy elections. Or that millionaires and billionaires buying elections, right? That's been Bernie's favorite thing to talk about. The millionaires and the billionaires. And it turns out that it's ladies' night and the mood is right for socialism. It's not true. It's not true. But we've been told that you can buy an election. And Bloomberg ran that experiment as much as any human being possibly can. And no, it is not possible to buy an election. It's possible to use money to get your message out. It's possible to use money as speech. But it's also possible for people to say, yeah, I still don't like you, and I'm going to vote for somebody else. See? Wow, in a sense, put a check mark in the yay democracy column. Turns out that he's not able to just walk in there and say, who would like some coconut crusted shrimp and a Bloomberg trucker hat and a Bloomberg sweatshirt. It's very soft. Try it. Turns out you can't buy an election with that. The other point here that I wanted to get to about the money and the spending the election is Bloomberg spent $600 million and was able to win American Samoa. And it's quite a headline. We have been told relentlessly for years that the media has been telling us that Russia was able to interfere in our election in a way that we should care about, be terrified of. It shakes us to the core of our elections and the confidence in our elections, and it's this horrible thing that we should all talk about all the time. We have been told that. Russia spent $100,000 on Facebook ads. A lot of them really semi-literate, bad English, not effective. Nobody would look at them and say, yeah, I'm going to change my mind based on this. Russia spent $100,000. Michael Bloomberg spent $600 million and didn't move the needle at all. Look at what ended up happening. We finally tested out the theory. Yeah, he was able to get some pollsters and get some people to say, see, Bloomberg, but that's with $600 million. Who really thinks that $100,000 spent on Facebook ads is going to change a presidential election? This is what I've been telling you all along is true. This is Democrats pouring a cup of warm water into the ocean and saying, we have changed the composition of the ocean. Technically a true statement, but insane, right? Irrelevant, doesn't matter, changes nothing. But they claim that it changed the whole thing. This is the game that they play. This is the dishonesty that they are going through. Bloomberg was even saying, maybe there'll be like a contested election. Play clip 7.
I don't know whether you're going to win any. If you don't have to win states, you have to win delegates. And I think what happens here is nobody gets a majority. At best, somebody will have a plurality. By definition, somebody will have a plurality. And then you go to a convention, and then we'll see what happens in the convention.
Do you want a contested convention?
I don't think that I can win any other ways. But contested convention is a democratic process.
A contested convention is the only way, and it's part of the process. Maybe Bloomberg thinks that there's still some prayer. He's ended his campaign, but, if Hillary Clinton can walk around thinking that she's still a relevant player in this process, if she's allowed to voice her opinion and get all this attention for it in the media and say things like, well, I would still run, maybe. If Hillary can do that, why can't Bloomberg be on the sidelines? And I would want to know, just Bloomberg, I think this will be a big indicator. Does Bloomberg's cash go behind Biden to defeat Trump? Really? Does he go all in and really just give Biden essentially an empty checkbook, which would replay out again? Does money determine political elections? Because what if Trump spent, I think they raised half what Hillary Clinton's campaign raised or they spent half. I mean, it was a huge disparity in the Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump campaigns, and Trump crushed her in the Electoral College. So, and which is the contest that we are running here. We're not running a popular vote contest. Let's establish that. Same reason you're going to see a series of editorials now going forward about how the Electoral College is a vestige of like racism and it's bad or something, or they're going to say that. And they're also going to be, we're just running a story here on the front page. Russia's still meddling in the election. Russia still meddling. Still meddling. And that's just hedging their bets. Or really, that's just setting up an excuse, a ready-made, built-in excuse in the event of failure of the candidate that now the entire Democrat apparatus is going to try to just carry, as though he's, the Emperor Biden or something. They're just going to carry him on their shoulders across this election finish line. So they already have they're going to run with the built-in excuse out of a sense of insecurity that they know. I mean, they will never admit this. You'll never hear them say this. They know that Joe Biden's not a great candidate. No one thinks Joe Biden's a great candidate. So does Bloomberg really put all of his financial might behind Biden? That's one point of this. And then the other point two is, let's say he does that and then Trump wins. Can we stop hearing about how money buys elections? Doesn't. We see this. We hear this. But it's something that makes libs who want a virtue signal over cash and politics and oligarchs running the economy, it makes them feel good to constantly talk about the corrupting influence of money because their people aren't corrupt. Their billionaires aren't bad. This is a disconnect in the brain that they never address, and I don't think they ever will, but at least we'll have more data to support our side, which is already the correct side, which is that money does not buy elections. Mayor Bloomberg tried and failed. I haven't talked to you guys about Bernie yet, have I?
Bernie has been adding commentary, but he has not been a focus of this radio show, because clearly Buck is an oligarch.
Bernie's not done. He's not over. They're still clinging to that hope. There's still a chance that the burn could come through here for the socialist left in the Democratic Party. I have told you before, I think that the Young Turks is a pretty terrible media organization with some really nasty and dishonest people who work for it. Cenk Uygur, who is the founder of Young Turks, who, just as a side note, he's running for Congress. He recently told the Young Turks, which is super left-wing, if you don't know what they are, they are the most woke, the most left-wing digital media outlet, at least in their own minds. I think they would agree that that's all probably true. So it's interesting that when they wanted to unionize, guess what? Their CEO and founder, Cenk, was like, no, you guys, you can't don't unionize. We can't afford that. I thought unions were good. This story just came out in the last few weeks. I thought unions were a great thing. Everybody should unionize. Come on. What's wrong with the fat cats? They just want to pay their workers a little bit more. So here, though, is Cenk, who I've interviewed him before. He can be reasonably pleasant. He's a socialist. He calls himself a progressive, but he's a socialist. And here he is talking about, this is just fun for a lot of us to enjoy this one. Here is why, according to one of the most left-wing, wokest of woke pundits out there who is running for Congress, as a Democrat, of course, here's why Joe Biden sucks. Play it.
And so you want to go to war, we'll go to war. And that is what this is. We cannot let Biden win. Guys, not just on progressives versus establishment. This is so important. I need you to understand this. Biden is not going to beat Trump. Biden is either near senile or actually senile. Watch any of the tapes. And Biden lies nonstop. He's going to get caught. The media is covering for him, but they're not going to be able to cover when the Republicans come for him. And when Trump comes for him, he's not going to beat Trump. The establishment candidate is less likely to beat Trump. Anyway, we just had 2016. The establishment candidate lost to a doofus like Trump. And now here we go, an establishment candidate that is far worse with his mental faculties under question. His record worse than Hillary Clinton's. He lies 1,000 times more than Hillary Clinton did, right? And you're going to run that guy against Trump, and we're going to lose to Trump again and maybe lose our democracy? Hell no.
I think that everything that he is saying. Oh, sorry. Cenk lost the primary yesterday. Thanks, producer Nick. So he lost already. Good call. He came in fourth. Not surprising. Producer Nick with the assist on that one. But I got to say, Cenk's analysis here of Joe Biden is totally correct across the board. He lies all the time. He said he was arrested going to see Mandela recently. Total bull. He guys clearly kind of forgets where he is sometimes. You know, he's not a skilled politician when you really get down to it. It's amazing. Why would we got to remember that, the email thing, the Democrats managed to cover on Hillary for that. Comey made that go away. They went to the wall, to the mat, to the mattresses, to the whatever the phrase is. They went all in behind Hillary and were unable to make it work. In what world is Joe Biden a more compelling? Remember, Hillary was Obama's Secretary of State. Hillary was the first female candidate that would have been the first female president of the United States, right? Hillary had a very close tie into the Obama administration, going to be a third term of Obama. That was the implicit idea beyond the whole first woman president carrying on the torch from the Obama administration, et cetera, et cetera. Didn't get it done. And as we know from the way the voting shook out, not even close. Joe Biden's going to come. People are going to say, oh, yeah, I've had 4 years of a really strong economy, relative peace, no major terror attacks from the jihadists on U.S. soil, the eradication of ISIS, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi dead, confronting Iran, taking out the head of the Iranian IRGC, Soleimani. When everyone said it's going to lead to war, Trump does that, doesn't lead to war. Turns out Iran's like, wow, we got to recalibrate here. All this stuff that's going on, securing the border, making sure that illegal aliens are less able to compete for jobs of Americans in places where wages now are rising. All that stuff, trade deal done. Trump did get a trade deal. I consider we just go through this, over and over again. All that stuff. And all of a sudden, people are going to say, you know what? Let's give the guy who forgets what race he's running for, confuses his wife and his sister, calls a voter he doesn't like fat on TV and then pretends that he's going to say something else, talks about the blonde hair on his legs at the pool, confronting a gangster named Corn Pop. Just all this stuff. And then add on top of that, you might think, oh, that's all superficial. And look at Trump. Trump, it says all the stuff he does on Twitter. Okay, but Biden's been wrong about pretty much every major policy issue he's ever handled for the last 40 years. Does anybody care?
And when we began this race for the presidency, everybody said it couldn't be done. But tonight, I tell you with absolute confidence, we are going to win the Democratic nomination, and we are going to defeat the most dangerous president in the history of this country.
Bernie's still feeling the burn. He thinks he's going to be able to pull this off. Do I think he's, at this point, delusional? Close to it, although look at what happened here on Super Tuesday. The only thing we know is that anything can happen, right? Do I think it's a distinct possibility that Bernie Sanders very well, no. I don't think it's a distinct possibility. I think it's a low percentage, but there is a chance. So you're telling me there's a chance. There's a chance that Bernie Sanders could find himself doing much better in these follow-on states than people anticipate. Industrial Midwest, Rust Belt states, in the South. Unlikely. The big differentiator for Biden in states in the South was the African-American vote. That, look, they according to all the polling, they never wavered, and they figured Biden was the safe choice. Biden was who it was going to be, and looks like they were all right. The people who were the African-American primary voters who thought that Biden was going to be the guy when a lot of everybody else was like, not going to be Biden. Whoop! Turns out it is going to be Biden. So we have to look at the reality of what the follow-on states now are after Super Tuesday for Bernie. Bernie has to say at this when he's raised so much money, he has to say that he's going to fight this out to the very end. And who knows how it's going to shake out when they get to the convention and crazy stuff. We're in a crazy world. I mentioned before, hello! She's still running around. She's still making noises on the sidelines of this campaign. Haven't forgotten about this. Play clip 2, Producer Mark.
In the campaign, in the documentary, you talk about his campaign from 2016, and you call it, quote, just baloney, and I feel so bad that people got sucked into it. Do you still feel that way now?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that was my authentic opinion then. It's my authentic opinion now. Here's one of the saddest things happening right now. The House of Representatives under Democratic leadership has passed 400 bills on really important issues, everything from health care to economic security to election security. It just goes on and on. Does anybody know that, Lindsay? Of course not. Nobody knows that. Change is hard. It's not glamorous. It doesn't fit into a soundbite. And yet the people who were elected in 2018 are down there doing the people's work. And I just think we ought to be more understanding and realistic about what it takes to get change in this big, complicated, pluralistic democracy of ours. And it's not easy, but boy, is it ever worth it. And I just want to make sure that voters know what can be done if they give the White House back to the Democrats.
Who should be the Democrat they give it back to, Hillary? I have an idea. Who should it be? I told you guys I saw the actor, and I would say public intellectual, even though he probably wouldn't take. I'm going to confer that title upon him based solely on his Twitter game, James Woods. I bumped into him in the elevator in California after my brother had said, "Hey, where's James Woods?" the night before, which was just crazy. James put out a tweet this morning, though, with an idea. It's just a theory, crediting it to a man who I think studied advanced algebraic theory at MIT, and he was a really interesting guy in that regard. But anyway, he put out a theory, and I'm just putting it out there. Now we're getting into the speculation zone. Biden's too old. Has moments that I will say this, and I don't, we get into this area. It's difficult sometimes to balance speaking the truth about Biden. This is why I also made that comment earlier in the week about how, I do respect the fact that he has dealt with severe tragedy in his life and kept on going, and didn't make excuses and just disappear, and didn't, that there's respect there. You got to respect what should be respected. Okay, on to now the senility question. Keep in mind that Donald Trump being crazy, I mean, they're saying that Donald Trump suffers from a serious enough mental illness that he should no longer be president. That has been a favorite game of the Democrats now for years. But there is a real, imagine, for example, how the markets would react if the president all of a sudden walked out to give a speech, whether it was Trump or Biden or anybody else. The president walked out and gave a speech and just started speaking in gibberish. I remember once in my life when I had such a high fever, and I still remember it happening, speaking in gibberish, thinking I was able to speak to my parents. It's terrifying because you hear and you're like, that's not what I'm trying to say. So that can happen. Imagine if the president of the United States came out and it was, my fellow Americans, I'd like to say that, and all of a sudden they got to run out there and they got Secret Service kind of grabbing him and shuffling him off the stage. Think of what the markets would do. Think of what our enemies would be thinking around the world. It's not good. It's not, and because it's not even just that, oh, look at this bad moment. It's bad optics. This is the person who's making really critical decisions about things. Decision fatigue is real. The decision-making process that we all have to engage in every day is one of the most important things we do, right? Decisions abound. We're constantly being forced to make decisions. Judgment. In many ways, life is a judgment test. What is your judgment about a whole host of issues, from the small to the very, very, very important? When somebody that may have the actual brain chemistry misfiring, it's a real discussion. It's fair to have it about Biden. And, we get in this area, though, where the media is just going to pretend that it's not true, that he does not have the what would seem. If he were a relative of mine and he had these incidents, if he were my great Uncle Joe, let's say, and I had seen him having these incidents, I would be worried about the mental health of my family member. I honestly would. Some of these things, it's cloudy. And I remember visiting in Brooklyn. I grew up here in New York City. I remember visiting a great-grandmother when I was very young, and I didn't know what dementia was, but she would have paranoid episodes and show signs of dementia. She was in her 90s. And, it's a tough thing to see no matter how old somebody is. Joe Biden's not quite there, but he's showing some of these early signs. And so, I don't want to be unkind, unchristian. I'm not trying to be nasty about it, but it's real. It's real. And they're going to pretend that it's not. And I think this is where we get into the James Woods theory. That's why I brought this up. There's all kinds of crazy ideas out there right now, but Hillary as VP under a Biden ticket. I know you, and keep in mind, Hillary as VP under a Biden ticket, it sets right in the minds of the left 2016. They would bring it would bring together the Clinton and Obama political machines. And Biden could very well he could agree to be a one-termer. Just say, I've got one term in me, and then I'm going to pass the baton on. Now, Hillary's older, too, but she's not as old as Biden, I don't think. I think she's like 71 or 70. She's like Trump age. But Biden could say, I'm going to pass the baton on to Hillary. You'd have a built-in, then, first woman president, assuming she was able to win then with Biden in the Oval Office. How old is she?
She's 72.
Yeah, that's what I think that's what Trump is. Trump's 72. 6 years, 7 years, 8 years makes a big difference at that age. It does. Any of you who have aging family members, like the difference between 60 and 70 is big. The difference between 70 and 80 is huge. So what about Hillary being brought in as the vice president under a Biden ticket, and then Biden says, I'm just going to be a one-termer? And the idea would be that at any point in time, Biden could say, for health reasons, he could this is the James Woods theory, he could gracefully bow out and say, we've got a wonderful president ready to go here with Hillary Clinton. You all know her. I'm going to go and give, speeches for $500,000 a pop or $250 a pop and go fishing. And I've saved the country. That becomes the narrative. He would have saved the country because they think that Donald Trump's an existential threat on behalf of the Democratic Party. And he would be, in Democrat circles, he would be a hero for all time. I can't say this is going to happen. Maybe Biden wouldn't want to be overshadowed by Hillary. I do think Biden probably recognizes that at some level, that he's missing a step and is too old for this, but thinks that he's the best chance they have against Trump, which may actually be true, and that he's doing them a favor by fighting this thing out till the very end. But Hillary as VP, it doesn't. Could they go a lot younger? Sure. But I don't think this is as out there. I don't know what the Vegas odds on this would be, but I think Hillary being VP under a Biden ticket, if he gets the nomination, makes a lot of sense. Remember, they floated Bloomberg and Hillary, and people say now that was just the Bloomberg campaign trying to get attention, whatever. Okay, well, all these consultants, all the people crunching the numbers, clearly they overestimated, but they had an incentive. Remember this. They had an incentive to overestimate Bloomberg's chances because they wanted the cash. Yeah, sure, this will be great. Give me more money. Oh, yeah, you'll totally win California. Give me more money. Hillary, as a shiny object to put out there to get more attention for the Bloomberg campaign, only works because people think it's feasible. People only think it's feasible because it is, I think. Does anyone doubt that Hillary would take a vice presidential slot under a Biden? I don't doubt it. I don't think she would. She wants back into the White House one way or another. Even though I know it's technically the Naval Observatory she'd be living in, but she wants back in the game. She doesn't want to sit this out. She doesn't want to go do yoga and go for walks and drinking Chardonnay and Chappaqua. No. She wants back in. It would not surprise me in the least if Hillary Clinton somehow managed this. Here's another prediction. We'll mark this with a post-Super Tuesday prediction. We'll have to mark this one down. Could Hillary end up being the VP? You'd have an old Democrat ticket, but one with a lot of resonance, 100% name recognition, a ton of money, and the media all in to support. Makes sense.
No, you got to have reform. I mean, remember what happened 4 years ago, summer of 2016. The FBI launches an investigation and spies on 4 American citizens associated with the presidential campaign. And to make matters worse, they further spy on him by going to the FISA court to spy on Carter Page, and they lied to the court 17 times. So we have to have reform. I think that's paramount. What we don't want is a clean reauthorization. So we're going to be pushing for reform. And frankly, the other big thing that needs to happen is we need John Ratcliffe confirmed as Director of National Intelligence. This was a guy who called this 3 years ago, said that bad things were happening, and of course Jim Comey and Adam Schiff said, oh, no, the FISA process is just fine. So those are the 2 most important things we can do right now to protect further campaigns in the future, presidential campaigns, and protect the American people. Reform FISA and make sure John Ratcliffe is head of DNI.
I got to tell you, I am still very frustrated to this day that it really hasn't sunk in yet just how egregious the FISA abuse was. You have to remember there that we always focus on Carter Page and George Papadopoulos. FISA was abused. We know this. We've seen the Inspector General report that said there were 14 instances of severe, improper stuff going on with the FISA court. And now it's come up for reauthorization. FISA is an end run on the Fourth Amendment. It's effectively a time when the Congress has said, okay, for national security reasons, we're just going to let you spy on people in secret, but it's only going to be used to stop terrorists and spies. It's not, it's not going to be used for political purposes. That would be way too egregious. But that's what happened. That is what occurred in the 2016 election cycle. They spied, people in the government got all worked up over a theory about Russian collusion, and whether they did it cynically, knowing that it was all BS, or whether they're actually dumb enough to believe it, deluded enough to think that this was really true, they used FISA to spy on a presidential campaign. You have to remember also, FISA allows for collection not just on the person, but on the person's contacts and the contacts of the contact. Cheryl Atkinson just wrote about this the last week or so. Talks about the 2 hops. So you can get pretty far. So if you have anybody associated with the Trump campaign, guess what? It's very likely you're going to be able to spy on people at the very top of, including perhaps Trump himself. So do we ever get any real knowledge of it? What should really happen is, now that he's probably going to wait for the Durham report, but who knows when that's going to come out. At some point, Trump should just declassify, they should declassify every person that was spied on under the FISA, every person that was touched, whose communications were sucked up essentially by the vacuum cleaner of the FISA surveillance as a result of the 4 Carter Page FISA warrants. That would tell us a story that I think people would finally say, wait a second. Because if Carter Page is in contact with so-and-so, and so-and-so is in contact with, the head of the Trump campaign, Trump's top advisors, Michael Cohen, I don't know, whoever. Guess what? They could have checked that email out too. They could have looked at those phone calls too. You name it. So that's what we really need to know for this to sink in. To just reauthorize FISA as it is would mean that we don't have any real accountability in the system. And there's no reason to believe that similar spying on a presidential campaign could occur in the future, including in this next election. What, you don't think there are still people working in the FBI and the DOJ who, if they could get away with it, would find some way to do this? I'm sure there are. They might be a little more hesitant now than they have been in the past, because Bill Barr, thankfully, is still the Attorney General, and there's this Durham probe coming out. I got to say, I'm right on all the deep state predictions and where the Inspector General report. That stuff I've just crushed for 3 years. I've never been wrong on that stuff. Political candidate picking is a little tougher. That I got to say, I don't have a 100% track record. I know the deep state, man. I know Ramius. I know the deep state. But politics in America is a tough thing to know right off the bat. So Jim Jordan's right that there should be penalties for lying to the FISA court. There won't be, though. And Congress is going to make a lot of noise about reform here. I wonder if they'll actually get far enough in this process that there'll be some change, because the lack of accountability at the FBI for what happened to the Trump campaign in 2016, it really just makes our legal system feel like a laughingstock.